And what it needed was to be loved no matter what. That is our most basic human need when it comes to love. I need to be loved, whether I perform well or not, whether I did what you told me or not, whether I did what you expected of me or not. And so why is healing so important is because the more that a parent heals, the more capable the parent is going to be.
Awekenge, this is Mental Metals, hosted by Asego Toto.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mental Matters. I'm your host, Asego Dodo. And before we dive into today's incredible conversation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy what you hear today, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the valuable insights we share every week. And if you find today's episode particularly inspiring or insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, or anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to us. Now, let's get back into our conversation.
What's different with psychedelics in general what is different when it comes to your supplements, your gummies, your plant-based medicine? Plant-based medicine. So what's the difference with that? How effective are psychedelics?
I think what makes psychedelics such a very effective tool for mental health is that I think today we are living in time and space that it is, I would say, maybe too much for how we have evolved as human beings. If you think about it, human beings have been on Earth, at least in this form, for almost 200,000 years. But it has been only in the past maybe 1,000 years at the most that we started gathering in these such big conglomerates. And the modern life, especially since the Industrial Revolution, has accelerated at a pace that is much faster than how we evolved. And therefore, a lot of new, I would say, mental diseases came that I am pretty sure weren't present a few thousand years before, like when it comes to anxiety and depression and being overwhelmed by the amount of messages one gets and work, and balancing the modern life is pretty challenging. And so psychedelics come here to play a part into assisting us in the challenging in the ways in which navigating life the way it is today is so challenging. So how does it do it, and why are they so effective? That's because one can meditate, and I am a huge advocate for meditation. There's so many things that one can do in our everyday life, including therapy. And at the end of the day, all of those things take you so far into your own mind, take you so far into understanding. Let's say that you're talking with a therapist. You're talking. So if you can talk, that basically means that you are accessing your conscious mind. You are not necessarily going deep into your subconscious, because the things that are into your subconscious mind are subconscious. They are hard to access. So usually you cannot really talk about them. If you can talk about them, either they are in your conscious mind or not that deep into your subconscious. However, most of the things that create our personalities in ways that we don't like it, or things that we could be doing better, or ways in which we could be living our life in a way that we would enjoy it better, the reason why we don't do those things, those reasons are saved in the subconscious mind from traumatic experiences and other difficulties. And so what psychedelics do is they give people the chance of accessing this depth that it cannot be accessed any other way, or it can, but it will require so much work and so much effort that the majority of the people are not willing or capable of getting to that place.
Mm. And another thing that one of the things that I realize about psychedelics in a way, as you speak about it actually, you go deeper into your subconscious. And whereas when it comes to therapy, we actually speak of yourself in a way of like sometimes within that. I believe that within therapy, and whereas you're talking not only therapy, when you speak about such concepts, something to your friends or you're in a group of colleagues, you actually realize, oh flip, I didn't know that about myself, and you get into that conscious self of yours. And within psychedelics, I wouldn't say that. I would say to me, it's a road that I believe that in a way, if I could walk that path, I would actually had a different perspective when it comes to that. I don't know in terms of, maybe it's the fact that when people actually explain what are psychedelics, what they actually do, and it's quite a fascinating thing. And also, I was listening. I'm not quite sure. Are you aware of Sam Harris?
Yes.
Yeah, Sam Harris was on Chris Williams, the Modern Wisdom podcast, and Chris Williamson has said that people want Sam Harris to actually try psychedelics, and he said no. And to your experience, in terms of, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of when it comes to holistic healing, isn't, how can I phrase this? Because in a way of, I want to actually put it in a perspective of that monk mode, and actually be within yourself, the Buddhism. And isn't that the easier way to actually access your subconscious compared to in terms of taking psychedelics?
Mhm. It is a common, I would say, misconception that
Mm.
is out there. In a way, yes. I think the answer to your question is both yes and no, in a way. And then there's one more answer to that, which is, what's the problem with that? um, let, let's start with yes. Yes, you do have a much easier access to your subconscious than if you were to be a monk and meditate in a mountain for thousands of years, or for all your life, or whatever that is. But the part that it is a no is that the misconception is that a lot of people think that if you take psychedelics, then that's it. You're done. You're everything is resolved, and that is such a huge misconception. Yeah, what psychedelics do is akin to university and then going to work. You can go to university all your life if you want, but you will not really learn how to apply the things that you have learned until you go to your real life and work on it. So one of the common problems that happens with psychedelics is that people learn a lot of those things. They learn a lot about themselves. They learn that if they hold on to the anger that they have to their mother, that they are never going to be free from resentment, and ultimately that's worse for them. And then they have a desire to go and start the process of forgiveness. But because those experiences can be so powerful and profound, people think that the only way to keep moving forward in their healing path is by continuing to have those experiences. And that is the same as saying, oh, the only way to get better at whatever I am studying is to keep studying it. And that is not the truth. In order to, you need to study some, and then you need to go into your everyday life and start applying it. So I would say that psychedelics are mostly a moment in the healing path. It's one more tool. It is not the healing path itself. Psychedelics are not the healing path. Psychedelics are not the thing that are going to heal you ultimately, but they are an absolutely amazing tool to help you move forward in your healing journey, so that when you are not with the psychedelics and you are in your everyday life, you know better how to become a more forgiving person, a more compassionate person, a more loving person, or how to honor your emotions better, or how to um, help others hold themselves in their emotions. So yeah, it's so that's why I say yes and no. Now, the last answer is, what is wrong with the faster way, right? Like sometimes people say like, well, isn't that a shortcut? I'm like, I wouldn't say it's exactly a shortcut, but if it were to be a shortcut, why would you take the long way? Especially when it comes to healing. Why would you want to wait longer to heal when healing is the thing that's going to give you a much better life quality for you and for those around you? So yeah, it's not a straightforward answer.
And you raise something that I believe that it's quite important, because in terms of feeling there's sufficient, that realizing that you spoke of the path of forgiveness, or you have been told within your family you'll be not good enough, and the way that you explained it, and I had a flashback, whereas I was doing I would say a series on addiction, in terms of alcohol addiction, your drug addiction, any type of addiction. And one thing that I realized is the fact that sometimes when we feel that not ourselves, feel like we need a validation of other people, we have this tendency of running into drugs and running into alcohol. And you mentioned the fact that taking psychedelics alone won't help. And I love the fact that you say that it's a healing tool, because sometimes we miss, I feel like we miss, in some way we mislead ourselves of saying that, okay, take this and you'll feel better. Same goes with vitamins. And if you don't have a certain vitamin, people would say take a gummy, take a supplement, you'll be good. Actually not realizing the fact that you need to maintain it, you need to learn from it. Same thing goes with, again, mentioning Sam Harris, where he said that the most difficult thing is the fact that you need to maintain it instead of actually going to it. In terms of reaching that point, there's the easier path, but actually in maintaining it is the harder thing, because you need to be consistent, you need to be honest with yourself and saying that I'm going to do this. And definitely another thing that I want to speak more on psychedelics is the fact that people will think that it is a permanent solution. Whereas, okay, I'm going to take a psychedelics, and tomorrow I'm going to take a psychedelic, and the next day I'm going to take a psychedelic, not realizing that through that journey, through that what you're doing, you need to learn something. You need to learn something from that, because what's the use of taking this if you don't learn anything? Would you say that is the enjoyment of it? And I believe that even though something is bad for you, even though something is good for you, there's some parts of it that you realize, or flip, I learned this from this. Same goes with when I used to this year I started to stop drinking. And one thing that I realized about drinking is the fact that I wouldn't say that it enhanced my self-awareness, but actually I saw how it actually is bad for me. Some people it might be a good thing, but to me, I wouldn't say that I'm a big fan of alcohol, because firstly, it's a waste of money, and the consequences of it are very bad. And it's something that I realized that, off flip, if I stop actually drinking and I see the fact that there's no difference, even if I go out with my friends, I will actually have the same feeling. And there's this thing. There's this thing that we used to say. I always say is the fact that you make your own happiness, because alcohol can make you happy, can boost you and having that confidence, but it goes with it's psychedelics. What happens when you actually, the person that you have taken, when you have taken psychedelics and when you are normal, are two different people. But how can you incorporate that? How can you integrate that I can learn from the person that I am when I'm drunk, and take that to my, actually, a person that has low self-confidence? That one of the things that I believe. And you spoke about in terms of the long way for healing. And I feel like there's this belief that was implemented to us, probably by the past generation, or I would say our parents, because I believe that the belief that we have come from our parents, and the fact that if it's hard, if it's long, you should take it, because it's a good, it means that it's worth it. But if it's short, if it's a shortcut, it's bad. There are dark consequences behind that. What's your take on that?
This is a very good question. Um, at the end of the day, that is a belief system.
Mm.
If it's long, it's worth it. If it's short, it's not. That by itself is a belief system, which is based on certain experiences that seem to make that to be true. And in a lot of cases, that is the case, where the more work you put into something, the more worth it that thing will be. So it's not a belief system that it is necessarily false. There's a lot of truth to that. It's still important to acknowledge that at the end of the day, it's a belief system. Now, but in any case, even if this is I wouldn't call it a shortcut, for the reason that usually a shortcut means that you get to an end goal faster, right? If I take a shortcut to driving home, I will get home faster. In this case, there's a big difference, which is I don't think that healing has an end or a goal. So it's not like if I take this, then I get to my healing faster. You do heal faster in terms of in your lifespan, you are going to end up doing more healing, but you are not going to be arriving to any particular place. So let's say that without psychedelics, you can do, I mean, I don't know exactly how to, but like certain amount of healing. Let's say that you can heal yourself 20%, just to put a number. And then with psychedelics, maybe you can heal yourself 70% or something like that. You're never going to really, I have never seen anybody reach to the end of their healing journey. I don't think that's possible, at least not yet. So rather than a shortcut, it is a tool that helps you do the most amount of healing that it is possible within your life. And because it's still a lifelong journey, and I want to make sure that that is come across very clear, healing is a lifelong journey with or without psychedelics. It still falls under that belief system that we were talking about, because it's still a long journey. It's still going to be all of your life. It just happens that thanks to the psychedelics, you can achieve more healing than without them if they are used properly. Now, why is this important? Why is it important to, in a way, do as much healing as possible? That is because I think we all agree, I'm sure you agree, I'm sure the audience agrees, that the world is not at its optimum place. There's wars, there's violence, there is constant, like there's lots of poverty. There's all of the things that we are already exposed to that are very painful. And one of the reasons why that is the case is because all of the healing that our great grandparents have not done, they have passed on to our great grandparents, and the healing that they have not done, to our grandparents, to our parents, and to us. So for all of the parts of ourselves that we don't heal, we're going to be giving that to our children, contributing to a world that we don't like. None of us like these dark aspects of the world. However, we are all contributing to it when we are having children without doing as much healing work as possible first. So, in a way, there is a sense of urgency. The more we heal, especially before having children, the more that we will be contributing to a more beautiful world and the world that we are all craving and wanting to see.
You spoke about the passing down of traumas of let me put that there. The traumas. Another thing that I have observed is the fact that some people actually see that they have a problem when they actually have a child, when they actually have a reason to live, because as we both agree in a way of young people are the one actually dealing with mental health, are the most generation that actually has accepted that there's this thing called mental health. And definitely our generation still, in terms of having accepted the fact that there's depression, and at some point other cultures refer to it as people being weak, people not actually understanding the hurdles of life, actually being not strong enough to actually man up, one would say. Another thing that I've realized is that, and it has changed my perspective, and being able to talk about mental health I wouldn't say it has been easy, but it has been hard because not everyone will listen, especially when it comes to mental health. If we're going to talk about business, if we're going to talk about anything else, people will actually listen because they will have, I would say, something in return. But when it comes to mental health, it's something that we don't do. And it's something that what I'm going to do with mental health, what do I'm going to do in terms of actually looking at my mental health, what that will actually give me. Because in all honesty, this world now is more about money more than anything else. A person can actually be tortured when it comes to their mental health. They even wouldn't care as long as they get that mandate that they were promised. And it's something that another thing that I've seen, and at some point question myself, am I like that? I'm willing to actually sacrifice my own mental well-being just to actually have money. And something that Chris Williamson said, that in terms of people want success and also happiness at the same time, not realizing that those are several things. And because it's in order for you to actually get that success, you must sacrifice happiness. In order for you to have happiness, you need to sacrifice for success. That's how I see it, because no one, even myself, I'm not that happy because I'm doing this, and I actually do. It's something that I've seen that, yes, I've seen people going to parties, having a nice time, going to a restaurant and having that free time. But whenever you are building something that it's worth it, something that will actually benefit other people, at the same time doesn't benefit you, you are not getting anything from that. I just actually try by any means to give back to the community, give back to the world. And it's something that I saw and thought to myself, why should I keep on doing this? Why should I keep on saying that? Okay, I'm gonna sit with a guest today again and talk about mental health, and on and on and on. And I just wanted to bring attention to you as something that I saw on Twitter, and I feel like it was written by Freud when it comes to the art of living, where he wrote, what do you consider to be more or less benefit factors making for happiness in a human mind? Number one, good physical and mental health. to good personal and intimate relations, such as those of marriage, the family, and friendships. The faculty of perceiving beauty and art in nature. 4, reasonable standards of living and satisfactory work. 5, a philosophic or religious point of view capable of coping successful with the sequel of life. What's your take on that?
Mhm. Well, first, before I go there, I want to make a quick comment on something you mentioned about sacrificing happiness for success or sacrificing success for happiness. I think that is only true. That's also a belief system. And that is only true, from my point of view, if depending on what you consider success. So to me, a successful person is somebody not necessarily that made a lot of money or that created a big company. I mean, they are successful in that. But if that doesn't make them happy, then to me, they are not successful. In a way, you can make your own happiness the thing that makes you a successful person or your own well-being, right? So that you don't have to sacrifice one for the other, so that everything that you do is with the intention of fostering both at the same time. So success is ultimately defined by the person and by society. I mean, society today says, usually use that word for create, like, succeeding in your companies or with money. But that is not my definition of success. And I think every person can change their own definition of success. And if we can align what success and happiness are, basically, to be in a life that you are feeling happy is to be successful at life, then you don't need to sacrifice any of those. Yeah. And then for your quote about Freud, some of the things that you mentioned are essential for our survival, and some of the other things are essential for thriving. So when it comes to shelter and having our basic needs covered, that is essential to our survival. And if those things are not covered, you are not going to be able to thrive, meaning to have an experience of life that is just full of joy and that you are happy to be here and happy to be alive, where you wake up being in awe of the miracle and the beauty of this world. It's going to be impossible to get to that place. And that I call thriving. If you don't have the basic things covered, like shelter and food and your basic human needs covered. So without those, we can't even talk about having a nice relationship or having. I mean, you probably would need to repeat some of them. I should have written them down because I think you mentioned 5 things, and I'm not remembering all of them right now. But some of the other ones that you mentioned, for example, all of the things that you said are essential to thrive. Not all of them are essential to survive, but all of them are essential to thrive. Basically, you cannot thrive without basic shelter and food. You cannot really thrive without having healthy and beautiful relationships. You cannot thrive if you don't appreciate the miracle and beauty of this. I mean, if you think about it, the fact that this exists, that our bodies, in the incredible machinery that they are, so complex, and the planet, the way it is, so complex, and everything is just so perfect. It's such a beautiful, awe-inspiring reality, and that we have the awareness to even be able to understand a little piece of it and capture it and put it in our hearts and be so. Wow, it's like I wake up every single day, feeling like I cannot believe that this exists, that I exist, that I get to experience all of the things, the beautiful ones and the not beautiful ones, the easy and the challenging. I can't believe that I can experience joy. I can't believe I can experience sadness. And I get to be grateful for my joy and be grateful for my sadness. I'm grateful also for my pain because I am also grateful for my pleasure, and one wouldn't exist without the other. So these are ways in which you get to experience the beauty and the magic of the world we live in, which was one of the things that you mentioned. And if you are not able to um, really feel these things, then you can have an okay or even a nice existence, but you are not going to be thriving. Your heart is not going to be like pumping gratitude naturally and genuinely out of your chest, because you are able to capture all of that. So that is a basic human need to thrive, but not to survive. So the same with relationships. I wake up every day and I look at my wife and I'm feeling so grateful that she's in my life. And I experience that every single morning, every single time I see her. And that makes my life more joyful. And it also helps me thrive. So I think, as I mentioned, I don't remember all of the things that you said, but it's important to distinguish that all of the things you mentioned are important to thrive. Some of them are essential to survive. And so if we can try to cover all of those, um, starting with the essentials to survive, so that from there you can build into having healthier relationships, into appreciating the miracle of life and the beauty and all of that, then we're going to be setting ourselves up for what I would call success, which is a constant joy and appreciation of the fact that we are here. And doing healing work helps with all of that. The more people heal, the better relationships they get into, the healthier those relationships are, the more they appreciate things that are right in front of us at all times, but we forget because we get too stressed or too busy with other things. So it all works together into making this experience a much more joyous one. I'm not sure I really answered your question the way you asked it, but
we actually did. I believe that we actually did. And speaking about gratitude, and I want to shift the conversation to self-care and something that actually not self-care, sorry, self-love, something that we mentioned on your YouTube. And after, when was it? Last week, I had a guest, Dr. Lehman, very interesting person, and love her perspective, because we're speaking about wellness, and definitely wellness includes love, actually taking care of yourself in a way of, you spoke about selfishness, as we see self-love as this something that's selfish and actually not looking at other people. And Dr. Liam mentioned a powerful thing, that I asked her what is wellness, and she said that being able to actually take care of other people, and it blew my mind. And from there, and I actually now I have different perspective on that. Would you say that it's when it comes to self-love, it also goes at, and how does that work when it comes to self-love? Because in my own perspective, if we actually speak about such conversation, because as we talk about self-love, there are people that will actually have that thing of, okay, I'm going to use this person, I'm going to take an advantage of this person, because if I do something, they will forgive me. If I keep on doing this, they will keep on loving me. So in a way, in that perspective, because I've seen it even within relationships, people actually mess up and the other party forgives them. So would you say that when it comes to self-love, the self-love that you talk about is the same self-love that you in terms of that of a community?
First, I really like that definition of wholeness. Um, in a way, taking care of other people is a consequence of being whole, because among one of our many needs to thrive, to take care of others, is something that makes us happy. If you think about it, a lot of people feel that they need to receive love. in order to be happy, or that's the way in which it's talked about the most, right? All we need is love. And when people think about that, it's like to receive love. And that is true. I mean, it's true for all of our lives. Throughout our whole life, we want to receive love, but it is especially true at the beginning of our lives, while we are children. In that moment, all we need is to receive love. The more love we receive, the more whole we are going to be, the more fed we are going to be in our most basic human need. However, once we grow up, for example, if you look at your niece or nephew, right, and you bring a little gift to them, and then they start jumping with joy and excitement, in that moment, you are feeling also very whole, because that love is also flowing out of your heart into them, and you're experiencing that joy because of what you have given and not because of what you have received. You are receiving the joy of giving in those moments. So, if you are not a person that loves themselves, you are going to have a much harder time giving that kind of love in your adult life, because it's almost like asking a homeless person that has nothing to eat to give you food, or to give you the only piece of bread that they've got that day. They're going to be like, I need this for myself. I don't have enough, right? But if you are so full of, you have so much, and then you open your fridge and it's full of food, and you're so full, and a friend says, hey, can I get something? You'll be like, please take it. It's my pleasure to give it. So obviously, I'm talking about food now, but there's something much more important than that, which is love. If you are full of your own love, if you care for yourself, then when you look at others and you see that they are not caring for yourself, something's going to come out of your heart that's going to want to make them have that experience too. Like, the more you are whole, the more you want others to be whole as well. And that's why I think self-love is one of the most important things that we should develop. It is not selfish. It is not everything for myself. It means I love myself so much that that feels so good. And naturally, what that creates is my desire for others to experience that. And whatever is up for me to do is for that to happen is going to happen much easier than those that don't love themselves. People with a lot of self-hatred, in exchange, they are angry all day. When somebody is happy, they get angry because they get jealous, because they see the happiness in others where they are so full of hatred, right? And people that start wars are full of hatred. People that create fights around them are full of hatred. And obviously, I think at that point is very clear which option is the one that's going to bring upon a more beautiful world for ourselves and for them. So, yeah.
Something that you realize you raised in terms of love, and in a perspective of someone that actually didn't. I believe that, again, going to the beliefs that we spoke about in terms of, if your mother didn't raise you, actually not raise, didn't love you in a perspective, you actually will display that on your girlfriend, on your wife, and on your children. And it becomes this trauma, this inheritance of trauma. And again, something that you mentioned earlier, passing down the traumas that we actually had by our grandparents, and they didn't eat, they didn't take care of themselves. It's a conversation that I've seen going, because usually we have this belief that it's only scientific, that when it comes to healing the emotional part, that I can not have the struggles, or I would say that not only the struggles, but the things that my grandfather had, because it's not something that is physical. It's not something that I can see. And in a way of, when it comes to what example can I use in terms of mental health problems, that okay, if I had a family member that had schizophrenia, and I would definitely be part of those people that will actually inherit. But when it comes to emotional side, we don't actually think about it. And it's again, it's a belief that I feel, I don't know about where you are, but here in South Africa, it's something that exists, and it's something that it has. I've learned a lot about, because I've been doing this for 4 years. It's only now that I'm learning about it. Previously, and I had a conversation with Dr. Smith where he spoke about vitamin A toxicity and how it can be inherited through genes. And it's something that I just, again, I want to get into in terms of genes, how does mental health, or how does depression, anxiety, PTSD, things that you speak about, how it actually affects us in a way when it comes to genes. So it's something that I wanted to mention. And also, actually, I derailed there. I was about to ask you some question about self-love again when it comes to validation, because we have this perception that we need validation from these people. It's either our friends, our mothers, someone that we look up to. We want that validation. And I learned it the hard way to actually stop that. I learned the hard way, in a way, because there was this 1 year when, as I told myself, enough is enough. And I decided to actually zone out to everything and work on myself. An entire year, I worked on myself and I took care of myself. I actually realized that I believe solitude, I wouldn't say it is the answer to everything, but it's an answer to some of the things. Because if you have a loss of confidence, if you don't believe in yourself, I feel like it's one of the things that you should do. Because at that period, I stayed in the room and for several days, almost a whole year, and actually re-evaluated myself of, actually, I like this, I don't like this is how I feel, this is how I feel. And emotionally, I was able to express myself. I was able to be vulnerable with myself. I believe it's something that we actually lack. We find it hard to actually to be vulnerable with ourselves, be honest with ourselves, and tell ourselves the fact that we are feeling this way. And we need to, in terms of finding help, we need to actually start off saying that, yeah, I would say, I don't want to use the word broken, because I don't believe in that word. Because I feel like that word actually makes things worse, because it comes again with perspective. Okay, if one says I'm broken, that means I can never be fixed. I will always be broken.
Yeah, that's great, that image. Well, first, let me say that congratulations on spending a year working on yourself when you said enough is enough. Sometimes it does require that moment where you just get fed up and you're like, okay, I can't keep going this way. I need to do something about it. And my wish is for the audience, as is listening to this, to not need to come to that place where you are fed up and you just can't keep going the way you're going. I mean, of course, that sometimes gets you to do those changes, but it's not exactly necessary. Some people can listen to, let's say, a conversation like this, and get inspired or think that maybe there is something for them to change or to learn or to work on. So I'm glad that you managed to do that step. And when it comes to validation, the thing that I wanted to talk really quickly about is that validation is also one of those basic human needs that we need in order to thrive when we are kids. So you were mentioning that we need validation from our friends, we need validation from our partners. And the truth is, we only need validation from anything that it is external to us in all of the places that our parents have not given that to us when we were kids. So as a child, you are, let's say, like a blank page, nothing, or like a blank programming. There's nothing there. And your parents are going to start programming, like if you would be a computer, with their beliefs and with what they make you believe of yourself. So if your father or mother, whether they say it with their words or with their actions, they start letting you know that you are not enough. Let's say that you make a little drawing, and then you show it to your mom or your dad, and they say, oh, you could do better. Or you go to school, and then you come back, and they're like, you got a B plus, you needed an A. That's not enough. What they are basically doing is programming in you that who you are is not enough, that you need more in order to get their love. So parents program their children by the amount of love that they give or stop giving, depending on what the child does or stops doing. And this is really, really important. This is the language of programming. It is through the giving or the withdrawal of love when a child does or does not something. So the child does something, receives love, then the child learns, I need to keep doing that. If the child does something and stops receiving love, then the child thinks like, I need to do the exact opposite of that. But it doesn't do it from a place of wholeness. It does it from a place of fear of not receiving love, of pain of not receiving love. Then we grow up, and that programming stays with us. And so when we meet a partner with our friends, there is a little child inside of us that we call the inner child or the wounded inner child, that it is still asking for what it needed. And what it needed was to be loved no matter what. That is our most basic human need when it comes to love. I need to be loved, whether I perform well or not, whether I did what you told me or not, whether I did what you expected of me or not. And so why is healing so important is because the more that a parent heals, the more capable the parent is going to be of giving love to the child no matter what. That is called unconditional, is when you give love no matter what the other person is doing or not, because you can see that the other person is lovable for who they are, because they are, and not for what they do. And so there's where self-love plays a big part. If you cannot see that you yourself are lovable for who you are and not for what you do, and if you have not healed the wounds around that were imposed in you by your parents, then you're going to do the same to your child. But let me take it out of the theory for a minute and give an example that will make it much clearer. Let's say that somebody, their parents are very strict with them, and they say, you need to be perfect at school, perfect at this, perfect at that. And then they give their love when that happens. Then that child grows up to believe that the only way in which love is a currency that you give and receive when you perform or when you're not. And then that person has a child now, and then they do the same to their child. They start telling their child to perform, or else they are not going to be loved in the way that they need it. Obviously, they don't use these words, but this is how the relationship develops. If that person would have healed and would have learned that their parents should have loved them no matter what, then that person would have done the same to their child. So when it comes to validation, if you are loved by your parents in a way in which is unconditional, no matter what you do, then you will grow up without needing that validation anymore, because that validation is the replacement of the love that you actually needed from your parents. And if you received it from your parents, then you don't need that replacement. You don't need that, what I would call it, fake thing. The validation, the external validation is, in a way, fake. It's not fake, but is the thing that replaces the real thing, which is the love that you should have received. So the way in which healing work plays a part here, what would healing mean here is that you learn to validate yourself. You learn to know that you are lovable no matter what, so that the more you can feel those internal emotional holes with your own love, this is where self-love plays a part, then the less validation you will need from other people. And so your relationships with them are going to be much healthier, because you're not going to be in a relationship so that you can get a validation. You are in a relationship because it's natural, because it's flowing. There's no external or there's no alternative reason for the relationship. You are not really using the person for the validation. You are just in relationship. So that's how I would try, validation, self-love, parenting, all of that together.
And something that really made me smile and wanting to get more into this conversation was in terms of actually giving your children that love no matter what they do. And I feel like there's a huge dark side upon that, because, for example, if you allow your child to actually gallivant on doing bad things and still you forgive them, and actually to go to extent of actually not protecting them, and you actually protecting them, I mean. And I was taught in a way of having that tough love, that as much as when I grew, my mother gave me that unconditional love, but at the same time, there was tough love. And when I speak about tough love in terms of discipline and in terms of, things like that, and I'm grateful for actually the way I was raised. And fast forward nowadays, I've seen children saying that they have rights, they are not allowed to be beaten, things like that. They are not allowed to actually be disciplined. And when you actually see those people when they grow up, and for the person that was disciplined and the person that wasn't disciplined. And it's funny enough, we had a conversation with a guest again, Amanda, and we spoke about in terms of consequences of connection, where in terms of this, and also, funny enough, we spoke about the inner child and how to reparent the inner child in a way. Within your practice, how do you actually emphasize on actually have that connection with that inner child?
I think it's important to note that, and I'm glad that you brought this up, because giving love to your child no matter what does not mean to let the child do whatever he or she wants, or does not mean to not put discipline in there, because there are some needs, and you need to be attuned to the needs of the child. In a way, letting the child do whatever they want is a way of not loving them. Like if a child is going to, they see fire for the first time and it's shiny and beautiful and it's a baby and it's going to touch the fire, if you don't let the child know that they are in danger, you are not really loving the child. So saying no is also a form of love, right? So the problem here is not whether you let the child do whatever they want or not, or whether you say no or not. The problem here is that in the places in which the parent has not healed, when the child does those things, the flow of love disconnects. So a child needs to be disciplined, but does not need to be beaten. Beating a child is a way of imparting discipline in a way that it is not loving. There are other ways of imparting discipline and saying no to a child and having the child pay the consequences without needing to disconnect your love from them. For example, you can say something like, you're not going to watch TV or have dessert for the next 5 days. And I know that this is going to be painful and is part of you learning what you need to learn in this situation. And while you are in that pain, I am there with you in your pain. I am not disconnecting from it. Parents, instead, they would be like, no TV, no dessert for the next 5 days, and go to your room. And the child goes to the room, but the parent has disconnected. Their flow of love has stopped. And the child feels that so much when the parent disconnects. You can do the same exact thing, but without disconnecting the flow of love. And that is also going to be felt by the child. And the child is going to learn discipline and is going to learn what not to do and what to do, but without having an emotional hole of the love that has not received. So this is obviously what I would call advanced parenting, which is unfortunate. I wish it wouldn't be advanced. I wish it would be basic, but we have not been taught how to properly parent our children. And partially it's our parents' responsibility because they have not done that to us. So that is when it comes to discipline. And what was your second question?
In terms of, actually, that was it. Another one was just a statement. Yeah, it was just a statement. Thank you so much for actually being here with me. Really appreciate the conversation. Actually loved it, and it really gave me a different perspective in overall what we spoke about. And when I really meant, as I wanted the conversation to be organic, that this is what I meant.